Hey everybody, it's Frankie A from the UNnormalized podcast, and welcome to my first show, test pilot for UNnormalized podcast. I'm going to just briefly tell you guys about some of the things that we're going to be doing here at the UNnormalized podcast. I am, again, Frankie A, your host for UNnormalized podcast, and a little bit about myself. I am a Jersey boy from Point Pleasant Beach, New Jersey, so I'm coming to you live right from sunny, sandy Point Pleasant, New Jersey. And why the show is called UNnormalized, I am, by trade, normally, a social worker. And I was doing some life coaching stuff, and a big question that I get from people is, what it's like to be normal. So what I tell people is, make up your own normal. There is no normal. We need to change the language, because is there anybody really normal out there? If you are, please let me know. Send me a DM, a Snapchat, a Facebook message, Twitter, tweet it, whatever you need to, because we all need to know what it's like for you to be normal and what that exactly is. So I like to live life, like I say, unnormalized. So I like to break the stereotypes. I like to break the norms. I like to jump with both feet out of the box. So I figured, what better way to reach people than to do a podcast and just let people know that it's okay to be unnormalized. So during the course of the shows, I'm going to be talking to a lot of guests, some great guests that are lined up. And we're going to talk about things, throughout the spectrum. But most of all, I want to hear from people and my guests what it's like to successfully be unnormalized. So that's kind of the whole premise of my show. I did start out doing some live Facebook feeds, but I got a bratty ass 17-year-old who thinks he knows everything because he watches everything on YouTube, everything podcasts. And he said, hey, Dad, I think you could reach more people if you do a weekly podcast. So, he sat down with me. What better way than to tap into the youth of our generation and pick their brains on how they communicate, how things are getting out there. And I figured this would be a great way for me to kind of experiment with my audience, and so people can not only hear my voice, but kind of watch me do podcasts. I'm going to have some special guests over the time that I'm doing this podcast, and it'll be guests from kind of all over the place, guests who have success and experience of living unnormalized in things like entertainment, in fashion, in pop culture, in politics, news, a bunch of different stuff. So I'm really excited to bring the podcast to you. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. So I hope you guys will engage with me as the podcast develops. Listen, this is not going to be a one of those professionally squeaky clean podcasts. This is kind of like a baby in the making. So I'm going to hit some bumps and bruises and stumbles, and things are going to fall apart, and that's okay, because that's all part of the mindset of being unnormalized. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't live life perfectly. I live sloppy, messy, difficult, challenging, because that's life. And anybody who tells you different, they're full of shit. So let's start out this podcast today, and just so you guys can kind of get to know me. Again, this is the pilot for UNnormalized, and so I just wanted to give you a little bit of history about myself and let you know where I come from, what I'm all about. So again, I'm Frankie A, your host for the UNnormalized podcast. I am from Point Pleasant Beach, New Jersey, 42 years old, and kind of been through some stuff throughout my life. Don't get me wrong, I lived a great life. I do live a great life. And but I started out my journey a really long time ago as a kid, and always knew that I wanted to do something creative with my life. So I've always been into kind of entertainment stuff, like dancing and performing and things like that as a child. Just your standard like plays and stuff like that in school. But as I got into high school, I kind of advanced that. I did some work on MTV with a group that I had in high school, was myself and a couple of my friends. We started out as a dance group. We were performing at a high school talent show, believe it or not. I know that's really cliche, but performed in a high school talent show. In the audience was somebody who was scouting people and talent for a show called Lip Service. Many of you guys who are old enough to know from the real MTV generation, when they actually played music in videos, they did start sprinkling in some of the game shows. So Lip Service was a show where you basically took talent and you try to mix them up and screw them up. There was a DJ, many of you may know her. Her name is Moni Love from the 90s. So she was behind the ones and twos, and she would kind of like throw songs on, and you would, lip sync and come up with dance routines and put them all together. And they had judges who would judge you. So we've had, I've had, run-ins with people like Eddie McMahon and, a bunch of other different very famous people. So that was a really good experience. Then I kind of sprung off that and did some, I was a hip hop dancer for about 15 years and taught hip hop for pretty much 15 to 18 years in local community stuff with kids, with adults. I mean, I was hired to do things like Sweet 16s and weddings and all kinds of fun stuff. So I always, again, did something creative with my talents. Then it was probably about that time where I started to really feel that I was a little different than maybe most of the people out there, or like people that I kind of were in the same circles with, and started to see some little things that were like flags, but I didn't see them as flags at the time, nor did I think my family or my friends kind of saw them at the time, because I really hid them well. And kind of the things that I'm talking about are things that kind of that I can see now that were like mental health issues. So fast forward, over a lifespan from like about 22 to about 38, I really was in the grasp of some mental health stuff that was going on. I actually went to culinary school in Manhattan and fell under the wings of a chef mentor by the name of Brian Pansier. Awesome, badass fucking chef. And he basically said to me, like, maybe one semester into my schooling in culinary school, like, hey, bro, you want to work? I know you have a wife and a kid and you need, to support your family. Do you want to come out and work and make some money? And I was like, yeah, sure. What the fuck? I'll make some money. Most people in school, culinary school, they do stuff pro bono and for free, and they just do it for the experience. But I was like, what the fuck? Might as well get the experience and get paid for it. So he kind of took me under his wing. I did some really fancy fucking stuff. Did a lot of did some concerts. I know I did a Mary J. Blige concert, Boyz II Men. We did a Perez Hilton show. I've done a whole bunch of like really cool stuff at the House of Radomir, which is an old mansion in Manhattan. We did a lot of stuff with, not only with Chef Brian Pansier, but with other chefs as well. And I also had the privilege to work with him to help open up Lady Gaga's restaurant, her parents' restaurant, Joanne's, And it was like at that point where things started to kind of fall apart. I remember one of the celebrity chefs at the restaurant comes downstairs and starts basically pitching a fit about how some like crudité platter that went out wasn't done properly. And you know what? I didn't even fucking do the thing. It was some other kid down in the prep area. But you know, in the culinary world, you just got to take it on the chin. And so I basically allowed this very famous celebrity chef, I won't name their name because of, you know, privacy rights and all that bullshit. I don't need to be getting sued. But the chef basically ripped me a new asshole for something that I didn't even do. And I stood there and I took it, and it basically crumbled me the fuck down. And I went into a spiral of really bad behaviors and things like, you know, substance abuse and all that kind of shit. So it led me to, which many people know that, you know, because of the work I do currently, led me to a suicide attempt, which was pretty fucked up. Woke up one morning and kind of just needed a break from 38 years of like just not knowing what the fuck is going on and not knowing where I can get help and all that kind of stuff, you know, because when you're in the midst of it, and so you're in it, you don't really know what kind of resources and stuff are out there. So, you know, I just kind of try to mask it and deal with it the best way that I can around the family. Like I said, I have a wife and son, so, you know, I did my best to kind of, you know, just mask it all in front of them. And then till one day I woke up and it was just like, you know, I had it. It wasn't so much that I wanted to maybe, you know, end my life, but I just needed a fucking pause. Like it was just too much. So down a bottle of pills, which you can't even fucking overdose on these pills, but the intention was just I needed a break. Fast forward, my wife calls the cops because I'm locked into a bathroom door, and my sister, who is a cop, my wife calls her, my sister calls her friends. They all fucking storm my apartment, and now I'm out of the bathroom and I'm locked into my master bedroom. They opened up the door. My wife gives them the key. They open up the door. They're coming in. I have a 9mm airsoft replica BB gun that looked just like a fucking 9mm, and I'm standing there holding it against, you know, towards the cops, and they're like hands on their guns and everything. Meanwhile, my wife had told them, I didn't know it at the time, but my wife had told them that I was, you know, I had the replica BB gun in the room with me. So you know, they knew, and these were people that I kind of knew from my sister, and so they knew to come in with a different approach than maybe they would have somebody else. If I was somebody else, I probably would have been shot right now and not even doing this podcast. But that brought me to a stint in a fucking mental ward, which, if you've never been in one, let me tell you, it's a fucking experience, man. You don't know what it's like to, you know, see the mind at work, like you do when you're an inpatient in a mental unit. It brought some perspective to things, some things I needed to change in my life. And I said, listen, if I'm going to fucking sit here in a mental ward for 2 weeks and take a look at myself, take a look at other human beings and how they're dealing with their problems, I need to come out of here and I need to do something. I need to make changes. I need to make changes in my life. So when I came out, I was like, what the fuck am I going to do with myself? So I had what's called, for people who don't know, ICMS, which is Integrated Case Management Services. And they basically came to my house every day, check up on me, make sure I was taking like medications and going to therapy, and everybody's okay with in the family. And my caseworker said to me one day, like, what do you want to do with your life, Frank? Which is a pretty fucking hard question, especially when you come out of a mental ward and your life is turned upside down, you're looking at kind of rebuilding everything. It's a difficult question. I tried, like I said, to do something creative. It's something I had passion and felt good about doing my entire life. Like I said, I've done like really cool fucking shit, man. I like really, if I would have, sometimes I look back at things and I'm like, damn, if I was in a better place, where would I be now with, those jobs? I mean, I worked for like performing arts centers and shit. So I always did something around what I love, and, why didn't those things kind of click? So when I came out, I was given a bunch of diagnoses, which fucking slapped me in the back of the head like you wouldn't believe. We're talking like, generalized anxiety disorder, PTSD, borderline personality disorder, a whole bunch of shit. So there were things that, they were telling me about the diagnoses that are common amongst other people that kind of really identified me, and I kind of had to deal with living life that way, and get educated on what living with a mental health diagnosis is like, because I was freaked the fuck out. I didn't know, like, you hear mental health, the stigma that's around it, and it's not a good image or picture of what really it is to have a mental health disorder. So when my social worker basically was like, what do you want to do with your life? I said, I really want to do something that kind of gives back to people, because that's also something I have a passion for, is helping other people, and a big reason why I wanted to do this podcast, just so, we could talk about things in a unnormalized setting and really have some good, meaty conversations, because I think we hide and tiptoe around things, especially nowadays. Everybody gets so sensitive, and they get their panties all in a twist when something is not put in a pretty box. And so when the social worker asked me what I wanted to do, I was basically like, I want to do something that's going to help people. And they're like, listen, Frankie, there's this job that you can do that you can take all that experience that you have gone through and help other people so they can come to terms with what, life is like with a mental health diagnosis. So I was like, yeah, badass, sign me the fuck up. That's what I want to do. So I went through a bunch of trainings, got some certifications, and became a social worker in behavioral mental health, and did some stuff in legislation. And I've done Hill Days talking to legislators and senators and Congress people, because I'm not intimidated by them at all. So I get in their face, I tell them what they need to hear, what the people need to hear. So that brought me to thinking about like how I can get this word out there, not only about like fun stuff like entertainment, just so my voice can be heard, about things that are kind of like all in my head, about all kinds of different things. Because, being a social worker, I'm not just like one thing. I don't like to be labeled. I don't like to be stuck in a box. So there's a lot of things that make up Frankie, and that's like my love for music and entertainment and movies, TV, fashion, love politics, love news, love getting into debates with people about issues. I love talking about pop culture. I'm a pop culture fucking monster. And if you need a lifeline, if you're ever on a fucking game show, just give me a call, because I'll win you that fucking $2 million. But you know what, motherfucker? I'm taking half. So all the things that kind of make me me, and I wanted to give a voice to. So, and I wanted to do it in a way where it's not people giving you a load of bullshit. It's people like kicking it to you, real conversations around like real topics, some dope fucking shit that we're going to be talking about with some dope guests I have lined up. Even for me, I'm surprised that, this early on, so many people are like so like on board about what I'm doing, which is fucking exciting that people want to just, jump on this bandwagon and ride the coattails for, wherever this thing goes. Hoping that it reaches a lot of people connect to it, a lot of people engage with that. I need people to kind of like get engaged and say, hey, Frankie, this is shit and you need to talk about this, or, really give their opinions, because that's what makes things unnormalized, is if we break down, not to get too mental healthy and social worky, but to break down stigma of even that word, because language is powerful. So breaking down what that word, normal means. Nobody's fucking normal. Nobody. When you look at this world today, and if you can tell me or show me somebody that's fucking normal with all the shit that's going on, we got a fucking president who is mad unnormal. But you know what? As much as I hate the motherfucker, I give him credit because he's turning this thing up on its fucking head to the point where people don't even know which way is up or which way is down. It's a bad thing for government, but when you look at it, I loathe and despise the man, but always have, even before he's been president. But he's lives that unnormalized life. He doesn't want to settle for what people tell him to do. And, I have to, that aspect at minimal, have to give him credit for, because he does do things that'll fucking get people to talk. So that's what I want to do. I want to have these conversations that get people talking about all kinds of stuff. Some of the segments that I kind of came up with in the initial stages of doing this thing is, one, I'm going to be doing what's called Unnormalized AF. So normalized as fuck. So that's just me and my random thoughts, just talking to people about the things that are on my mind, the things that are kind of getting me thinking, getting the wheels turning, getting the emotions stirred up, and putting it out there for people to kind of, lend their input to. Listen, I don't want to always hear what I want to hear. I want you guys to kick it to me real as much as I'm kicking it to you real. I want you to keep it 100. Just, let me know what you think. I want to know, let me know, Frankie, you're wrong. You're totally fucking wrong about that. And let me tell you why. But let me tell you, if you're going to tell me something like that, then you need to come with some hard facts, a big stance. I want to, passion, a heart around the conversation. Don't give me some fluff shit, because I will tear that shit down in a heartbeat. Some other segments, just to kind of run through them. I hang around with a dope crowd. So we come up with some funny fucking shit that comes up in our conversation. Sometimes it's funny and entertaining. Sometimes it's deep. Sometimes it gets people mad. Sometimes we get mad at each other. Sometimes we laugh at each other. So I'm going to be doing a segment with my peoples called the VIP Convos. And again, that's just some random conversations that we have, hanging out with each other, and just, we talk. So, getting into some deep conversations, some real conversations with real people. Then I'm going to be bringing to you the UNN, which is like my version of CNN, which is unnormalized news. So basically things that are going on in the news that kind of, I put my spin on it, let you know what I think about it. May not always be what everybody else thinks about it, but it's definitely going to be about what I think about it. I love the news. I love staying on top of the news. I love current events. So just talking about shit that's going down, in the real world. Another segment that I'm going to be doing is, because I love entertainment, I love pop culture and all that kind of stuff, music. So we're going to be doing a segment called Gossip Folks. So basically talking about celeb stuff, pop culture, music, entertainment, what's going on, the hot news, hot topics surrounding, everything pop culture. Then being a chef, I got to throw some food stuff in there, because I'm not really I don't really work as a chef anymore. Honestly, I don't work as a chef. I did have my own catering business for about 10 years. But I am still a lover of food. Everything to me is food. I do have a hashtag that I always say, hashtag everything is food, because everything is fucking food. Everybody talks about food. Everybody takes pictures of their food now, food porn, all that kind of stuff. People are trying different things. There's a million and one, food shows. There's a million and one up and coming chefs out there, restaurants, food trends, all that kind of stuff. So that segment's going to be called, some of you are familiar with it. I do a little blog called The Brown Paper Bag by Frankie Deo. And I'm going to be moving that into this podcast. So talking to people, talking to chefs, doing podcasts live from different places that I like to eat and want to try out, and things that are kind of, other people are trying, and tips and recipes, all that kind of fun shit. Also, being a life coach, which I am a professional life coach. People pay a lot of money for life coaches. Celebs have them. Everybody got them nowadays. So I am a professional life coach. And so I'm going to be talking about some stuff around mental health, some stuff around physical health, wellness, all that kind of stuff. I'm certified in mindfulness, cognitive behavioral therapy, which basically is a fancy word for meditation and shit. So I love doing all that stuff. I love being centered, present, finding different ways that different people are achieving their balance. So that's what I'm going to be talking about in a segment called Life Hacks. So basically just talking about shit that we can fucking hack through life and find out cheats and all that kind of stuff, just to really enjoy life and be life lovers. Because there's nothing worse than not loving life and having to live a long life. But if we can find ways that we can enjoy our lives, really appreciate things in the moment, whatever that is, and just come up with ways and talk to people and see what they're doing about life and how they're managing through life. Then we're going to be doing, I'm a nerd. I'm a fucking nerd. I've always been a nerd. I'm a proud nerd. I like fucking Harry Potter. I like Star Wars, Stranger Things. I like all that shit. The Dark Crystal, anything that you could fucking think about that you would, associate with a nerd is something that I probably would like. So we're going to be talking about all that kind of nerdy shit, techie stuff that comes out, all that really nerdy, fun shit. Then we're going to be doing a really cool, interesting segment that's called CD9. And what CD9 is going to be convos with the younger generation. Because I really think that we need to tap into their culture, because they are going to be the future. All the fucking dinosaurs are dying out, which maybe is not a bad thing. I think a lot of, shit that we're hung up on, that that says that we're normal, is wrapped up into is shit that has come from generations that does not apply to what's going on right now and how life is lived right now. These young cats, man, we take them for granted. Yeah, a lot of the shit that they sucks, but a lot of the shit that they come up with is really dope. Fucking far out there. Their minds think a million miles a minute. And they're really tapped into things like technology. And yeah, it's, a lot of people want to talk shit about Facebook and everything like that and social media, but these kids really adapted to it and made it their own culture, their own world. And if we are going to pass the torch to them, we got to know what's in their minds, how they think, how they speak, how they dress, the things that they are interested in, what makes them tick. So going to have conversations with some of us older folk and some of the younger cats out there, so we can kind of see where we can build a bridge between generations. So I think it's going to be really interesting. I think we need to let their voices be heard and really sit down and have conversations about what they think and where they want to take this thing, that ultimately impacts all of us out there. These kids really, when they say, they're the future generations, they are. And we take that for granted, that these kids, we have to nurture them. We have to learn from them. We have to kind of start transitioning to their way of life, because they're the ones that are going to be running shit in about 10 to 15 years, if not more. They're tapped into things like, civil rights and breaking down things like gender equality and really fighting the system that's out there, the machine that's out there, like politics and government and things. They're holding people accountable. It reminds me of like, they're almost kind of like almost that same breed as if it was like the 60s and 70s, where they really stood out to the authority and really held them accountable and really broke down, the grasp that authority had on society. This new generation is doing the same thing. So if not even better, because like they have all this new fancy fucking shit that they can apply to all of what they've heard in history of what fighting the machine is like. And now they're smarter. They fight harder. Their stamina is like bonkers. So, really tapping into, and I'm really like looking forward to having CD9 segments for people who don't know what CD9 is, because I didn't know what the fuck CD9 was. CD9 is like, they have their own terminology and shit. So CD9 is like, they say CD9 to each other when there's an adult in the room, or, they text it to each other. So this way, if there's an adult in the room, the other person on the other end, the other young cat on the other end knows, okay, I can't talk about certain shit because there's an adult in the room. So CD9, there's going to be adults in the room with some young heads, and we're going to talk about some really cool shit. Another segment we're going to have is something that's called Clapback. So basically what it is that you guys can, hit me up on my socials. You guys can, maybe we're going to be doing some live Clapback shows, so you guys can call in and just basically put shit on blast. Relationship, whatever, is going on at work or at school, or, just in the news, something that's going on, something that you ran into somebody and you fucking got into it with somebody, or something's just really irritating you. That's what Clapback is going to be about. So, we can bring up some really good conversations around people's real life angst, and it's also a good way for people to fucking get shit out. So we're also going to be doing something called It's Complicated, which is going to be just like relationship shit, and how to, have a good relationship and what fucking sucks in a relationship. So all things relationships with people who are all in different kinds of relationships. Look, man, I am, what people do in their bedroom is none of my business. It's fucking interesting, but it's none of my business. Not for me to judge. So I say, listen, let your freak flag fly. And as long as it ain't hurting nobody else, it should be nobody else's business. But here on the UNnormalized podcast, we want you to come and talk about all that unnormalized shit that's going on in your relationships. So that's what's going to be with It's Complicated. And then we're going to be doing something, because I love music, and I think we're returning back to music and music culture that really is having a voice. There's a lot of bullshit out there, but there's also, some people out there that are doing some good shit. And I'm not talking about your commercialized, on the radio, $1 million contracts, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of dope people out there. They're doing stuff with their artistry and their creative, and they're building it around a movement of, just a voice being heard. And so I'm going to have a lot of dope guests that are lined up. Some really pretty fucking cool people are already signed up to be on the movement, which is really exciting for me, because like I said earlier, I didn't think, you throw shit out there, you don't know what's going to stick. You don't know what people are gonna like wanna buy into, especially early on in a podcast like this, where ain't nobody fucking listening right now. I'm hoping people listen, but to get people to jump on when the shit hasn't even hit the air, but they have confidence in you and they know your voice is gonna lend them a voice. That's some really powerful shit. So that's the stuff that we're gonna be talking about in the movement, and then we're gonna have some like other segments that come up. All these segments aren't going to be in one show, of course, because, we're only doing about an hour podcast, because after that, nobody wants to fucking listen to me ramble on, or, don't want to hear anybody talk about their shit. So, we're going to do about an hour podcast a week, and just kind of every week we're going to be doing some of these segments, having special guests on. So I'm going to mix it up kind of every week, just throw out, one or two segments that I kind of just listed off, and hopefully people kind of engage and enjoy it, and we can build the show and add more segments and get some really fucking dope guests to come on. My style is I'm gonna do this thing stripped down. I'm not one of those fancy podcasters, YouTubers that have all the bells and whistles. I really want to bring it back down to basics, because if you're gonna do things unnormalized, you got to strip all that bullshit commercial, do what I tell you type of deal, follow my lead. So I'm ripping all that shit down, and I'm starting from the ground up. So, I'm going to come to you from, here in sunny Point Pleasant Beach, and maybe, some other locations where we can take the podcast, and, really, bring it some life. So that's what the podcast is going to be about. A little bit more about me. Look, I'm just a inner city Italian kid from the Bricks in Newark, New Jersey. And I just want to be able to kind of jump into my wheelhouses and have conversations with people about it. I want to bring you as dope as a show as I possibly can, always keeping it 100, and, expecting my guests and my listeners to do the same with me. I'm going to have people on that I necessarily don't agree with, but I want to hear their voice. I want you to hear their voice, because it's all about having a dialogue. If we don't have a dialogue, and that's the problem in today's society, is that we are afraid to talk. We're afraid to talk and kick it real with people and let people know how you feel and your opinions, because we're afraid that we're going to upset somebody. I mean, if we can that whole saying, agree to disagree, is not bullshit. If we can just sit and say, hey, you know what? I hear you, but I don't necessarily agree with that. Let me let you know where I'm coming from, and let's come to a common ground about some things. So you can at least see my perspective. I'm not asking people to walk away, with their minds flipped or their opinions flipped. I want people to stand firm and stand strong and tall in their opinions and their convictions and their motives and all that kind of stuff. But I want to have a dialogue with people. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with me disagreeing with somebody or somebody disagreeing with me. I'm not a fucking expert in everything, and I hate people who feel like they know everything. You don't know shit. You don't know anything. What you look up on Google or what you hear tidbits about does not make you a fucking expert. And people want to fucking be heard and want to hear themselves talk and think that they're always right. Listen, man, that's the problem, is if you think that you're right, nobody else can be right. And if you don't think anybody else can be right, that's just fucking narcissistic. And that's like selfish. Get out of your own way. Take your head out of your own ass and be able to have a conversation with people, but be able to listen to what other people say as well. So hopefully this will give people like an outlet to tap into. I think it's all going to be a really dope show for you guys. I want to give you guys my socials so you can hit up as well. I'm on Instagram at the UNnormalized Podcast, Facebook UNnormalized Podcast as well. So like my Instagram, follow it, like my Facebook page. I'm going to be doing some live stuff there as well. Hit me up at Twitter at UNnormalized Pod. So that's UNnormalized POD. On Snapchat, I'm on there as Get Unnormalized. And when we go live, I want you guys to give me a call. The number is going to be 732-800-8. Sorry, that's totally wrong. It's 732-800-6486. Again, this is not going to be a perfect thing, guys. I don't want it to be perfect. I want it to be unnormalized. So you can also give me a call in and leave me a message with anything that you hear, comments, questions, things you want me to talk about. Call 732-800-84. Why do I keep saying 84? It's not 84. 732-800-6486. Again, it's 732-800-6486. Instagram, Unnormalized Podcast. Facebook, Unnormalized Podcast. Twitter, at Unnormalized Pod. Snapchat, Get Unnormalized. And again, the number to call me at any time, day or night, 24/7, 365, with your thoughts, comments, questions is 732-800-6486. I got it right this time. So I'm going to sign off for now. I hope that you guys will tune in. Again, this was just a little pilot introduction about some of the things that Unnormalized Podcast is going to be about and what Frankie A is at Unnormalized Podcast is going to be doing. And I look for you guys to be tuning in. And I want you guys to stay as fucking unnormalized as possible. Peace.